Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today, we have our friend JJ Flazanes. Is that correct? Okay, I just suddenly lost all confidence in how to pronounce your name, Flazanes. Yeah, jjflazanes.com, link in the description, of course. I forgot to ask if it was okay to say where you're at in the world, roughly, like city and state or...
California.
Oh, there you go. We're both West Coasty type folks. Okay, so our friend JJ is an author and podcaster, and I wrote this down because my memory is crap. She works with conscious, spiritual truth seekers who want to remove emotional blocks to success in health, business, and life by helping to identify patterns of self-sabotage and to transmute struggle into joy. That's good stuff. That's what I'm trying to do here. You know, the struggle of interpreting dreams transmuted into something useful and joyous. We're going to get right back to her in 2 seconds. Would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends? Always need more volunteer dreamers, viewers for the video game streams, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific. This episode brought to you in part by ABC Book 6, Studies in Dreams by Mrs. Mary Arnold Forster. Fascinating, like a self-assessment, self-case study written by this gal 100 years ago of her own experience with lucid dreams. So you can get that, of course, at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, including downloadable MP3 versions of this very podcast. If you would also head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com. It's attached to my Rumble account. I am building a community there, and that is enough out of me. JJ, thanks for hanging in there through the shilling. Gotta shill myself, of course.
No worries. Thanks, Benjamin, for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we were talking before briefly, and you have written books of your own. I don't know if you want to talk about that first or your podcast experience. This is the part of the show where we talk about anything, whatever comes to mind.
Oh gosh. Well,
where to start?
Part of what I do. Yeah, you just open a big start anywhere. Okay. Well, what is relevant to your audience? If people are here about, I guess I could lead by saying that over the last 6 to 10 years, I've moved from, and I was sort of actress. I'm a Pisces. I have a strong intuition. You are too. Mm-hmm. And so through acting, personal training into what I'm doing now, which is helping people with core wounds, rewiring core wound patterns, helping to unblock patterns that prevent success in all areas of life, from health to relationships to money. Over that time, I was led to believe that people were either born with a strong intuition or not. And while I had certain levels of intuition and clairvoyance in different areas, or not just clairvoyance, one of the clairs or a couple of the clairs, by hanging out with a very good healer friend of mine who was born much stronger in that department than I learned and I realized that a lot of intuition is based on trust. And trusting yourself and trusting the hits. And so I created a course called Strengthening Intuition, because I, over time, have seen my intuition increase by using it, by trusting it, by leaning into it. And for me, dreams come into that as an example of our ability to get the message from our dreams. Yes, there are definitely dreams where I have on a hike after waking up with my partner, I've sort of discussed it out loud to sort of see what comes up and what do I feel about it? And is there a message in here? And what do I think this is about? Like, not incessantly, but just out of curiosity and being a kind of an observer. There are times where it's very clear right away what the overall message is. Sometimes it's premonitions of things that are about to happen, or a clarification, or for me, don't worry, this is going to happen. Here's the dream to prove that. And I'm like, okay, cool, it's coming. I saw it in my dream, it's coming. So it helps to not wonder. It takes some of the worry away if I tend to go down that path of obsessing or something. So, but I find that I think what I want to share with people who are either coming on your show because they want to figure out their dreams, that I want to break the myth of that you can't become more intuitive and you cannot become more, like, we all have access to that part of our brain. We just haven't either used it or activated it. And it absolutely can be through many different methods. It doesn't mean someone's going to turn into a fully 6 clair, 100% kind of person overnight, or even ever in their lifetime. But we all can strengthen our intuition to understand and know and to receive information in different ways, and learn to trust that. So just in case anyone's wondering, because I think that there's a power that we all have. It's our vibration, it's our frequency, it's our interpretation. And I love too, like when people come to me and tell me some dreams in the coaching that I do, I'm definitely not a dream interpreter by any means, but there's, you can assess some things. There's some pretty obvious themes that happen in certain dreams that you can, and then of course the person's relationship to it. It's sort of like pulling tarot cards or pulling goddess cards. The energy that like what you get shown is in a match to your energy going in. And so it's like, it'll never be wrong. It'll just be a reflection of what's going on with you in that moment. If of course you're centered and intentional and present. If you're not present, then you may not be connected to what you're doing, but that all can be learned.
For sure. No, definitely. And I wrote down a few notes because I'm not going to remember half the stuff I wanted to say. I'm like, oh, wow, this is all really good. But working backwards a little bit, the last thing you said, the idea of you saying you're not an expert in interpreting dreams. I would also say, actually, I am not an expert. I might know more than most people. I might have looked into it a little bit more. I might have had a lot more practice. But part of what I'm trying to do here is say, you can do this for yourself. You can just watch what I do and kind of how I float through this process. And speaking of intuition, my process is completely intuitive. I didn't, and that's another thing about intuition, the idea that people dismiss it because it's unscientific. You can have a gut feeling that's wrong. You can have science that's wrong. You can conduct a faulty experiment with bad whatever, and you can get bad answers. So it's not like one is necessarily better than the other, but it can be very difficult to know which intuitions to trust, or know that your understanding of an intuition is correct. And I think that also does take practice. So this is all kind of wrapped up in this bundle of things of like, the longer you, the more attention and focus you bring to trying to develop a skill, the better you're going to get at it. I think that works for things like intuition as well.
Absolutely. I want to bring another perspective to actually make it science, because I believe that there is no wrong. It's about the frequency that you're on. So if you're interpreting something, or I'm intuiting something about somebody else, depending on the gap of where I am versus where they are. Because I had this happen to me all the time with my personal training clients. When I finally decided to leave the personal training industry because it was only using 25% of my gifts and talents, like I saw things very clearly to me on the frequency I'm in, which was higher than most of my clients. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that I have a broader perspective. I have a different relationship with the sciences that I use in the work that I do, including quantum physics.
You almost have to be a guide in some ways. You have to know a little bit more than someone, or you should be learning from them.
Well, it's about the perspective.
Yeah.
It's what's your perspective, and what are you considering? Like I teach a class called The 3 Reasons Why Talk Therapy is Ineffective, and it's on my website. It's free. But one of the things that I explain in sort of the emotional processing realm is the different, and there are a lot. And I think on the slide, there's maybe, I don't know, like 6 across, 3 down. Maybe there's like 18. I don't know. There's a lot of different factors that influence our interpretation. And so, but let's just go with physics for a second. Let's go with quantum physics and vibration and frequency. And everyone understands, and I'm sure that's not new to your listeners, but everyone understands that back in the day when we have a radio dial that has a number on it, and which most of them do. I'm listening last night on the drive home from LA. I was like, oh, I'm in LA. I get to listen to this 96.3 station that I can't get up in Ojai, right? Because the frequency doesn't reach up here. So when I get in range, I can tune into 96.3. But if I want to hear 96.3 and I'm on 94.5, I'm not going to hear what I want to hear because it's on a different frequency. So it's the same thing vibrationally for our experiences. Every experience exists. Every negative, every positive experience, you being sick and ill and dying, you being thriving, healing and whole and abundant and happy and flourishing exists. And it exists in this plane and other planes right now, all of it. And where we decide to tune into is what we experience. So I've had people who have said to me, like, I had a massage therapist once, and she, like a weird person. I didn't really love her. Her frequency felt like felt kind of anxious and stuff. And she told me things. Oh, actually, let's just use my example of the day that I actually understood in a cellular way frequency. I understood it for a long time intellectually, because you get it, right? People know things, but until you live them, until it's in your body, you don't know it. You understand it, but you're not living it. And my ex-husband and I were out at the beach with his brother with his best friend and two girls he brought from Colorado, and they were frolicking in the sand. And I remember this was before I have an iPad. I don't have a smartphone. So I wasn't texting anybody. I wasn't distracted. We weren't in a full-on deep conversation about anything. We were kind of observing what was happening in front of us with his best friend and these two girls. And I remember being pretty present. I mean, yeah, we were talking, but we weren't, I wasn't distracted. And that on the drive home, he said to me, "Did you see what those girls were trying to do to you?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "They were trying to bait you." And I'm like, okay. And I totally 100% believed that he saw what he saw. He was convinced and convicted that what he saw existed. And I didn't doubt him for a second. And that was the first moment I realized, oh my God, here's the prime example of I did not receive that. I did not see that because I don't live in that frequency. He lives in a frequency of always wonder what everyone thinks about him. And I don't care. So most of the time. So I wasn't literally in the place to receive that experience. So when it comes to intuition, somebody with a broader perspective might be able to see, back to my personal training clients, like I have a book, it's called Messages from the Body. And so when I deal with people with any kind of disease, illness, pains, whatever, I'm referring to the book because I want to know the emotional root of this pain or disease. And I looked at it once with one of my clients, and it was so obvious to me. I'm like, oh my God, this is you. And then he read it, and he was like, I don't know. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't have perspective about their programs, about their patterns, about their habits and how they appear in the world. Like they don't have, and so like he was completely disconnected from this very clear, like, this is exactly you. Like he had type 1 diabetes, I think. And anyway, it was just totally him. And he didn't dismiss it. He just didn't get it. But it's not that I was wrong. It's that he wasn't in a place to receive that vibrationally because he doesn't have perspective. My consciousness, my point of view is a lot larger and really looks at all these different factors. And his is this big and doesn't look at other factors because he doesn't know any. He's not interested in things. So that just to say that I actually believe that it all could have value. It doesn't mean you have to accept it or agree with it or want to stay with it. If somebody sees something for you in their frequency, because that's where they are, it might be useful to listen to. It might not resonate at all, but it doesn't mean it's not true. It just means that they're in a different frequency than you are.
Yeah, I definitely use that concept of frequency and resonation, especially in when I'm doing the dream work thing. I was making more notes here. The idea of not only is my process intuitive, but the spontaneity of suggestions that I bring to it is completely intuitive. I feel like this might be relevant. Let me share, and then that gets checked or bounced back, or I say, does that resonate? And sometimes I say things about a particular dream experience, or I frame it in a particular way. I say, what if we look at it from this angle? And a person goes, whoa. And then I could tell they just felt it. They felt something. That's the zing I'm looking for and it's like the moment of epiphany. I mean, people describe it a lot of different ways, but this relationship, one of the first things I wrote down way back when you started describing what you do and how you approach it was a quote that's often attributed to Socrates, but it was like written on the Oracle of Delphi. Know thyself. And that was the purpose of going to these oracles, was to find out things about you, about your destiny, and to receive these messages from poor girls huffing fumes coming out of a cave in Greece. But that is also the purpose of my work in dreams, is like, I tell people the answers are not in me. It's not my dream. I'm not hearing the voice of spirits. God's not talking to me. You're telling me something. You're inviting me in to look around inside your head and your experience from your perspective. And we talk it out together. And hopefully that results then in better self-understanding. And that's 99% of the getting started on something is seeing it for what it is. Because if you don't acknowledge it, number one, it might as well not exist. It's not on your radar. You're never going to do anything about something you ignore. But also you've got to not just notice it, but actually see it for what it is. Then you can decide how to approach it. Because if you see it for something it's not, you're going to take all kinds of the wrong tactics to try and address it or move from it. So that's there's a lot of overlap between what you and I are doing. And I think it's very much in the same ballpark. I just have a tinier slice, I would say. So I just do dreams. So
Well, yeah, dreams definitely. And depending on speaking of like my personal training days, the brother of that client, who in life was very, well, he's a business owner. He had a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. He wouldn't, I remember when I had fibroids and I tried all kinds of like natural things and I actually did really like remove, release, whatever, one on my own. Didn't result in a lot of blood loss, which wasn't awesome and everything. But when I got done with what I did, which wasn't surgery, I remember him saying something about like, he doubted that. He's like, well, you talk about this, but then you couldn't heal that. And I said, you know what I realized is that I wasn't supposed to, because I am so far removed from Western medical that I had and from what's going on there, that I had to experience what I did to help save a bunch of uteruses because it's unnecessary. And I was flabbergasted by my entire experience from start to finish from the process, not to mention it did increase like my own intuition and sort of second guessing of things. Cause I remember that I was going to do surgery at one point but every time I went to go to the doctor and schedule it, I was bawling my eyes out. Okay. And I teach law of attraction. Hello, I'm crying. This is the third time. It happens every time. So here's the thing. If the decision that you're making is in alignment with you, you will feel relief, not fear. And so every time I went, hello, like the third time, I'm like, hello, McFly. You do not believe this. This is not your path. And so I listened to my intuition on that, and my intuition, oh, that's a fun story. I mean, it's not a dream, but it kind of goes in and out. So I didn't have the surgery, and for 2 years I continued to do sort of alternative things. And then, my body kind of grew and changed, but there was a procedure. It's called, uterine artery embolization. So there's no surgery, there's no cutting of anything. It's just inserting sort of pellets so that blood flow stops. But it's safe, it's effective, but you were told that if you wanted to have kids or whatever, it was not good. Like, don't do that if you ever want to have children. So I said, okay, well then I guess I can't do that. So then now I go on my merry way and I do all my things and I'm doing all the 2 years worth of stuff, and the fibroids are growing. They're not, at one point I did release one. And like I said, I was very anemic. Blood flow went really down. But before that had happened, I had said to myself, like, I got this intuitive hit that said, my body said to me, okay, it's time. Go back to the computer. It's 2 years later. Go back and check that procedure again. Now that procedure 2 years before that was, a fertility like no. And now 2 years later, it was a fertility preserver. So now the data has changed and now they're like, yes, this is a good thing to do. So I was like, okay, so now it's time. I'm going to go do that thing. But when I actually did that thing, and like every step of the way, I was just floored with the lack of tools and perspective and flexibility of Western medical. I mean, I went to like gynecologist. I was given her all these different ways to deal with the thing. And she like said no to all of them. And I'm like, you're not helping me here. Like, here's your problem. And here's your solution. You've got drugs and surgery. All right, let me give you 10 more that I thought of. And I'm a very well-educated health professional. And she nixed all of them. And I was like, man, you guys suck. None of you want to actually problem solve for real. But at the end of the day, what happened was exactly what I said was going to happen. Everyone fought me. The doctors fought me. They told me to get a hysterectomy. I said no. The gynecologist said, you make me nervous because you could be in surgery. You could have sepsis and die. The doctors at the hospital threatened me. Oh, you could bleed out and die. And I'm like, And how much pressure I got. And because of my own knowledge, I was so in shock. And I'm like, and I can handle this because of who I am. But the average person is not going to get out alive here. They're going to listen to the doctor because it's the doctor, and they're going to pressure them. But, when I finally went back to the gynecologist after she and I, came up with a solution and we kind of discussed the things, and I made her nervous. And I said to her, it's going to be okay. It's going to happen the exact way that I'm telling you it's going to happen. And then exactly that's what happened. And so I came back now that I've proved that I freaking know what I'm talking about. Because anyway, but so it all worked out, but I had to go through that because I'm sitting in my bubble of my reality, which most people don't live in. And so now I go into the bubble of everybody else's reality that does this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm horrified. I'm like, oh, now I understand. So I told him, I think this is why I had to go through it. Can I heal? I've healed all kinds of other things for me and other people, but this was a lesson that I could not have learned any other way. I had to learn it that way. So, but again, that intuition piece, that like allowing your body to talk to you, which it does in a dream in your subconscious, right? So, I use my dreams as obviously as messengers, as confirming and as connection. So back to that client who had that doubt in me. He was that kind of guy in life. Like when he was in his waking state, big burly guy, getting very open heart, big heart. Oh God, worked so hard, means so well, but like a little closed on the emotional side. Even though he was going to therapy and whatnot, he just didn't. He thought I was cute. He didn't really want to deal with his stuff. But I'm telling you, that man, when he went to sleep, anybody who had crossed over was in his dream having conversations with him. I mean, he was so connected in his dream state. He'd tell me about this dream. I'm like, oh my God, she came to you. And he totally believed it and knew it. It wasn't, I'd have to convince him. He knew that his dead ex-girlfriend who came back, like, was actually her, not a memory of her, a new moment, a new connection, a new conversation. Another guy that worked for him who died also came back. Like he was just this channel. I was so impressed with how not connected he is in his waking life, but how super connected he is in his sleeping life.
Yeah, definitely. That's working backwards a little bit there. Just the last comment you said. So I don't discount the possibility of visitations from the deceased. The books I've published are full of accounts that I don't think the people are lying, and I don't think people who tell me they saw a relative. What I can't do is distinguish between that and the the memory of a person, as you were saying. So I stay in my lane and say, I love the spooky woo. I think it's fascinating and probably more real than I will ever know, but I don't know what to do with it. I can't differentiate. Like if someone came to me and said, I have a dream I think is prophetic. Ben, can you tell me if that's true, or is this wishful thinking? I can't. Oh,
so, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I look at it like stay in my lane, and I say, well, let's look at the psychological side of things. But I think that's plenty useful and fascinating, all on its own. Because and this is again kind of working backwards here. One thing I wanted to throw in there is I think it's a blessing and a curse, and I think you're similar to me. Is we're both perfectly polite and friendly people, but I think we both have a strong disagreeable trend. So I'll say no once politely, and then I'm going to stop being polite. It's like this is I think it's a very useful tool for investigators to be a little more disagreeable. It's like you're not just going to swallow what other people tell you. You're going to look into it yourself. You're not just going to bend to experts. You're going to be like, this doesn't make sense to me. And then so I think it's easier for folks like us to trust our gut than people who are a little more on the agreeable side, where they're a little more go along to get along, a little more, well, I'd rather have harmony than be correct. I'm a little more focused on facts. And anyway, I'm not trying to tell you who you are, but I sense a kinship on that disagreeable side in the personality scale sense. And it's not a bad thing, of course.
No. Well, as a Pisces, generally, there's many more planets than just your sun sign, but Pisces are sort of the last. So we have everyone's good stuff and bad stuff. So we have lots of layers of processing, and we're at the end. It's the end. It's like the old wise man. So there is a perspective that an Aries doesn't have, because it's the first time on the planet. It's the first. Again, there's other signs to consider in the chart, but it really is. My brother is a. Oh, my phone is ringing. Sorry about that. That never happens.
Okay. Mine will probably ring. I think I have it off, but I can never remember.
I never have it on. So my
honestly,
brother,
if you need to take a break, go to the bathroom, get a cup of tea, take
no.
It's perfectly fine.
Why did that happen?
That's why I say this is unprofessional. This is loosey-goosey. I'll just cut it out if we take a break. It doesn't matter to me. Go ahead.
No worries. My brother's an Aries. I'm a Pisces. We couldn't be more different. And that's part of it, because he's like literally the first time on the planet, and I've been here many times, and he's coming back, but he's like a new soul. we look at life completely.
I think I've been around before. Yeah.
Oh, you've definitely been around before, right? Well, people know when they're old souls. Yeah. People don't necessarily know when they're young souls, though. It indicates a lot more
perspective,
struggle sometimes, a little bit more. So people just want it to be easy. So they listen to the doctors and the government, and and they don't necessarily want to go out and research. In fact, I had that conversation with my mother 2 days ago about family stuff. I said, look, I know you did the best that you could. I said, but you're of the generation, and so is your parents, that you have a child and you're like, okay, I'm the parent, you're the child, you listen to me, and that's it. I'm like, that's not how it is. Don't you notice that every generation gets faster and faster and smarter and smarter? Why is that? Because they're more expansive, they're more conscious. So it's time for you to learn something new about what in this past has not worked for you. So it's time to get everyone's head out of the sand and learn something new, because as a parent, that is your job, to be the parent for your child, not the other way around. So it's your job to grow, and most people aren't told that, but that's the job of your parent, of being a parent. I don't care if it's a fur baby or a human child, but you are requested to expand because and for this being that you are taking care of and having in the world. But she's a Pisces too. She's a Pisces too. She gets very overwhelmed, right? Like, I think people get very overwhelmed. Like you mentioned the prophecies of dreams. And I think when I first noticed, I mean, this has been happening for a while, but there was probably was 2018 or 2019. I woke up and had a dream about a guy who I knew that I haven't talked to, seen. I didn't see it on social media, like, for years. His name was Tyson. And I got up and I said to my partner, I was like, I had this dream about Tyson. I was like, I haven't thought about Tyson in years. Like, I wonder what that was about. Come to find out, he had a heart attack that night.
Yeah.
I
believe those stories are absolutely real. And I don't know what to make of it. I don't know how that works. I would love to find out someday. But there's a strong likelihood, I believe, that we are connected on levels that are not physical. Like it doesn't have an explanation.
Oh, of course. Well, we're mostly energetic.
I mean, I'm with you 100% on that one. It's like, I feel uncomfortable a lot of times talking about some of these subjects, not because I don't find it fascinating, but because it's so far outside my wheelhouse. And I'm like, I don't feel confident in my ability to speak on it well, or explain it, or give answers or perspectives that are unique or interesting. So, I don't avoid it. I mean, like I said, I actually have a friend in real life who told me I had a dream, and 1 week later, that exact sequence of events happened. I believe him. I know he's not lying to me. I don't know what to do with that. I'm like, it's the moments when I go, wow, that's crazy, man.
Well, can't we just think it's cool? Can't we just think it's cool?
I do. That's exactly, I do.
And don't you think that we have some bit of our subconscious that we can ask, that we can say, hey, I want to know if this is true. Can you help me?
I think that's the nature. I think that's the nature of what we are doing. We are asking, what is it? It's the proper understanding of, say, the biblical. So I'm not a Christian, but I appreciate all the different philosophical traditions where the truth is. So there's a ask and ye shall receive, in a way, and it's kind of a lot of people read that as the idea of make a wish and the genie of the white beard and robe up in the sky will grant wishes. It's not exactly like that. It's like, if you don't seek, you will never find. But if you seek, if you put yourself on the path towards a direction and remain dedicated to, you will. It's the only way you can get where you're going, or achieve something. So asking ourselves these questions, putting our focus and attention on things, we get surprisingly useful answers. And that's one thing I was going to say too, is that this is way back there too. It's the idea of intuition, pattern recognition, and absorbing information. So we've got our consciousness is a funny thing. It's a tiny fraction of everything that's going on in there, physically and spiritually. Our body takes in so much sense data and processes so much stuff that it's impossible to attend to it all. We attend to just a tiny fraction of what we're taking in. So it makes a tremendous amount of sense to me that we're going to, if we ask ourselves questions, we can get answers to bubble up that are relevant to the question. So that's kind of where I was going with that whole thing. And I think that's what dreams are, is maybe sometimes we have this intuitive sense of something we need to know. We haven't even, and that's another thing I wrote down too, is, our brains put together things that we don't have the awareness or ability to consciously express. And then that comes out in these forms of images. And yeah, I think my working theory, dreams are always some manner of problem solving, some manner of processing a situation to try and figure out, well, what do I think or feel about this thing that happened to me? How do I understand it? Or what do I do about it? And I think there's actually three, and now I can't remember what all three of that was two of them. Anyway, and there's my puppy. He's on his, oh, there you go. He's getting down. He's an old man. He came to us to retire. But anyway, that was my rant, and I got distracted by a dog. I'll throw it back to you.
Well, so all the dreams that I can think of were things that, again, Tyson, and I didn't know at the time. My ex-boyfriend had taken his life on my 1-year marriage anniversary, and I kept seeing pictures all over the internet about him and his brother, and I was like, what happened? And then I found out that he had killed himself. But then he came to me in a dream like a day or two later, and I was like, okay, he's good.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks exploring the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, documenting the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
I just needed to connect with him, and I can't demand it because actually my cat died Monday, and my partner said that she had come to him, and I was like, okay, great. I will just lean into that she came to you. She hasn't come to me yet. I had a dream. I don't know if it was the night that she died or the next night, but the only thing I remember about the dream is, so I think I was hearing like barking or noises, like animal noises, cat fights, actually. I was hearing cat fights. So maybe it was the night she died. Maybe I did hear that, but I didn't know that I heard it because it didn't wake me up. But in the dream, I remember hearing kind of cat fights, and I went out to the back to look at what was going on. And there was like, do you know when you're growing up and you make the like shoebox houses or the 3D sort of open-faced like little bedroom scenario, and you got the clay people yeah. Well, it was almost like that. It was almost like I walked outside and I saw what looked like a contained area. It was only 3 walls, but it was attached to like my property, and then she turned the lights on, and there was a green, like fake grass bottom, and there were a lot of cats. And I don't know if they were fighting or not, but it was almost like she was doing something secretly in the dark. And then I turned the lights on. I was like, what's going on out here? Like, quiet down or something. And then she's like, oh, no, sorry. And then that was that. And I don't remember if that was the night she died, or it probably was the night she died, or possibly the next night. It would make more sense if it was the night she died, because she was taken by a coyote. But I didn't really understand. So if we want to go on that, but before going on that path of that dream, because that is definitely the most recent dream, and that's only a piece of it. Other people, like a business partner of mine, she had died, and she also had come to me, and I was like, okay, she's good. And then like other cats of mine, one of my very first cats, like he came to me, and I was like, okay, he's fine. Like, so I get a lot of, I use my nighttime sleeping to connect and ask for, please show me that you're okay. Please connect with me. Let me know that you're good. And it happens a lot. My hormones were kind of off this last couple of months. And I really wanted my cycle to be reinstated and installed. And then I had a dream that it did. And so I'm like, okay, it's coming. And it did, so like, again, that's my relationship to my dreams, is sort of information. And I know that they're all not true. Like the thing with the cats in the backyard, like that isn't a fact. That isn't a reality. Yeah. But it's like, what's the message in there for me? What's the thing I'm working out? A dream from when in like a last relationship, when I started that relationship, I had ended another one, and that one did not end that one didn't feel completed. I didn't have resolution with that. So then as things went bumpy in the night in my new relationship at the time, I remember and then that person kind of came back into my space because the way he ended our relationship was lame and stupid. And it was because he was afraid. And I knew that, but he confirmed it. But so I started I go dancing, and I gone salsa dancing, and bachata is a very sensual dance. Anyway, I saw him and I danced with him. Nothing happened in the I cheated kind of way, but but it's pretty close when you're kind of having sex on the dance floor. It's totally legal and clothes are on and there's no, bodily fluids being exchanged in any way, shape or form. But there was a part of me that was sort of second guessing my choices. And then I'd had a dream at some point further down the line of the two of them. Like I was sitting at a vanity. And I think they were both there, like the old relationship and the new relationship. And I don't remember. I just remembered that dream helped me to realize that I was still too stuck in the last relationship to truly move forward, and that I needed to make a choice. And I couldn't continue doing this bouncing back and forth. It wasn't fair to anybody, especially me.
And that's some very interesting imagery too. So you said sitting in front of a vanity, and also the word choice that pops to mind when you think, well, what is this? So they call it a vanity, of course, because you're looking at yourself. Because it's vain. But it's also, we say, let's hold a mirror up to ourselves. And so there's that self-assessment thing. You're in this place where you would spend, where it is natural to reflect. And again, using that same, we talk about that metaphorically. I was reflecting on myself and my problems, looking back or examining. And you've got on either side of you, and you have to choose a direction. It's like, so I'm looking at myself to say, what am I, who am I, what do I want out of this, and then that's probably the same epiphany we would have worked out together to say, you're looking at I'm still holding on to some of this baggage that's not letting me move forward. Bam, we got our story arc, our pattern, all the imagery fits for that experience. That's exactly what I probably would have suggested. I did want to ask, we can move into the dream thing. We're doing it. We're talking about it. Initially, you weren't sure which one you wanted to go with. You're like, well, just let it be spontaneous. We can also talk it through and say which dreams feel most interesting to talk about. You can, or the only thing I would say is, and this came to me a moment ago, is will probably be better if I didn't have a dream that had too much possibility for supernatural stuff in it, because I'm going to set that aside anyway and look at it from a different angle. So if you have a dream of visitations, be like, well, maybe, but if it is, then that's what it was. That's the answer. The answer is it was a visitation. It's not really something I can analyze, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, maybe we can get over that. I mean, I don't know if I want to go down the cat one, because I'm literally, this is the first day I haven't cried. It's very fresh. It's the first day I haven't cried yet.
Yeah.
I was a mess all week, and I'm better.
Understandable.
But
me too. Every time.
Yeah. Well, this one was too, and the whole coyote thing was tragic. And anyway, it's one thing when when an animal's sick and you kind of are preparing and you're taking action and you don't feel so helpless. And this was completely, that wasn't helpless, and that I could have made her stay inside, but this little soul was not having it. She, we did everything, and
They're kind of partly wild animals. They're going to live in nature. Yeah.
Right. Well, she wasn't having it. And, because people sort of tried to shame me on that one. We'll keep her inside. I'm like, do you think that I didn't try that?
Right.
But at what cost? At the cost of her peeing on everything, on her bullying all the rest of my animals, on Doug being upset, of furniture and all the things. At what cost? Her not being happy. Nobody's happy. But there, I have, and this is subject related versus specific. I have had several dreams about my past relationship, but not in memory. They're all new. They're all, and I don't dream a lot about my current relationship, even though I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. There's no doubt. And there's no doubt 100% that I am not supposed to be anywhere other than where I am. But it concerns me. I won't lie. It concerns me that I have, and I feel like it's my body working stuff out, working. I don't know what it's working out, but it's just the fact that some of these dreams are that he's in it, and I'm I don't like that. Why can't it? Now, granted, let's go through amount of time it takes to process someone who was in your life, who you thought would be in your life forever. And we were together 13, 14 years total, or 13 years total. And I'm only in 6 years in this new relationship. So, in terms of time, like there was more experience, there was more growing up, there was a lot more emotional, like emotional, like charges, like in all ways, shapes, and forms, from happy to sad and desperate and desolate and hopeless. So, that probably entered my subconscious in much more powerful ways.
Well, those are the most powerful memories, the ones attached to strong emotion. I mean, we don't tend to remember all the times we were bored and nothing happened. It's when we were excited, when we were scared, when we were in danger. Though these things are really imprint themselves on, and a lot of times they also become iconic of certain types of feelings, depending on how strong the experience was attached to a specific emotion. Then that can come back in dreams. So did you want to pick one of those recent dreams?
I don't know that I have the details of one of those. I think just the conceptual idea of it. But I have a memory of a dream I have not had in a very long time. But it was a dream. It was a feeling that I would have. It was a dream, but it was so what would happen? And it's probably happened. I don't even know how often it happened. It didn't happen like every month or every week. Definitely didn't happen every night, but I feel like it happened a couple times a year, or at least twice a year for a while. And it was the dream of feeling like someone has broken in and I can't move.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like I'm trying to move. Like I'm scared and I'm trying to get up and I can't. Like my body is frozen. It is solid. It's concrete. I can't move.
Gotcha.
That has not happened I don't think it's happened in 6 years, but it's happened, but it used to recur somewhat frequently, like more than the fact that I can remember that I used to feel that is, it happened a bunch of times.
Absolutely. Do you have a specific instance of experiencing that type of dream that we could look at, or, because it's hard to, usually what I do is, and people want to, this is very natural, and very common in talking with folks. They want to tell me the type of dream it is over time and the common elements, but I actually kind of work backwards. Okay, I want to look at one instance of it to figure out kind of what it is, and then we start comparing it to the other ones rather than trying to jump to the conclusion first.
Well,
so
the thing that I haven't had it in a long time, the theme was I was laying in bed. I hear, someone, maybe I feel like someone has intruded the house. I'm by myself and I can't move. And I want to get up and I want to run and I can't. And I'm literally trying. I'm giving it 100% of my effort and I am pinned down, not by a person, just by whatever. And so feeling like you're frozen.
Yeah, that very much comports with the what were identified 200 years ago as typical dreams. The idea of it commonly expresses itself as attempting to escape, say running away from a monster, but it feels like your feet are stuck in some molasses, or you're trying to fight, but your body, you have no control over your body and you can't throw an effective punch. A lot of these things are being out of control of the body, or paralyzed, or unable to escape from a present danger. But if we looked at that just thematically, I mean, these dreams were occurring when you were in a relationship that later ended because it wasn't working for you.
Right. And you want to cut this, Benjamin. I just want to make sure, because I'm looking at my screen. Did you record this?
Yes. Yes, I'm recording it on my local software on Streamlabs OBS. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
That's fine. I'll leave that in because normally people use Zoom to record, right?
Right. I'm looking like I don't see a Zoom recording happening. So I
should have said. I use Discord primarily. Folks out there in the audience, I have a Zoom backup. Some people don't want to create a Discord account. Some people, it won't let them in, and we don't know why. And it's not their fault. Sometimes the audio is messed up. Technical difficulty shit happens. If we are using, if you are a guest on my show and we are using Zoom, feel free to record it yourself. You can, and also after these episodes are published, they belong to you as much as to me. You can make clips, you can share them with friends, you can auto-tune, remix something funny you said. It's fine with me. It's, I'm not I'm not stressing about it. I'm not, and we don't do, I don't have folks sign contracts or waivers and there's no fee. I never charge any money. We're just two people talking about, I do this for fun. It's a business, but buy my books. You want to support me, buy my books. I'm not interested in the whole, I used to make clips. It was so much work. Like, forget it. Nobody watched them. It doesn't matter. Okay. Back to your dream thing though. So
yeah. So you're saying I was in a relationship that ultimately didn't work. I think it happened before that relationship too, though. I think this has gone back over many years, probably more than 10,
sure.
That it happened, and that it would happen not regularly, but occasionally enough that it's a recurring dream.
Yeah, for sure. But it has not come back in a long time. So whatever caused it to be a necessary representation, something you needed to show yourself, has gone away. That's very typically what happens in the discussion of these recurring dreams, and especially if like someone says, I used to have this dream all the time, then I didn't have it for 10 years, and now I'm starting to have it again. I'm like, look at that. What old situation is back again that you need to say, hey, this is happening. Pay attention. Definitely that kind of intuitive pattern recognition thing happening there. So that's one possibility. Look deeper into that if you wanted to. Or is there more of a even a brief narrative type of dream you've had recently that I was here, I did this, then that happened. If not, it is what it is, and we'll go with what we got.
Well, again, there's the cat one. Because that was most recent. I don't think if I dreamed last night, I don't remember it. Well, I'm sure I dreamed. I just didn't remember it.
Yeah, it didn't have to be most recent. That was, that
was
tough.
It was very tough. And again, I know that there's been a theme of my last relationship appearing in my dreams. And then I'll tell my partner and I'm like, yeah, it wasn't you. But, and it's not romantic or happy at all. It's usually, and it's not fighting. It's normally there's a problem or situation that's about me, but somehow he's in it, but my new guy's not in it. And that kind of, I'd like that to shift.
Even if it was too, there's a, someone could feel horrible and guilty that they had a sex dream about an ex. And in my estimation, those dreams are it's not about wishing to go back and screw your ex-boyfriend. That's not really what it's about. It's more, it gets into the idea of sex is the most intimate thing you can do. You had a very intimate and physical relationship with someone in the past. And when you were with them, and when you got together and married them, there were things you loved about them. And there are now things you would still miss about that person long since. And so you might have a wistful memory of saying, I wish I didn't have to give up all these good things that we had together. All said and done, it needed to happen. I don't regret that. I'm not trying to undo the past, but you can be, a bit melancholy, but not regretful exactly. But, it's okay to miss the good things that you had with someone that you just couldn't get along with. And that there's very often comparisons to, sometimes, and this is, you got to tease these things apart, because I make suggestions if people go, I don't think so. It's fine. I'm wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. But sometimes there's comparisons to current partners as well, where you're like, this person is better for me 99.9%, but that 0.1%, that other guy had it. And I wish he had it too.
Yep.
And it's okay to wish that. And it's not a condemnation of someone. You're not even asking them to change. You're just like, let's say I used to enjoy hiking with that guy. Well, this guy's more into video games. That's fine. I don't need that. I don't need the hiking. We'll do something else. Horrible example, but
but it's a good point that there are personality differences. And while new guy has more of the things, like in all like the important ways, there are a few that he doesn't have that the other one did. In important ways, but not, again, the percentage is less, and the balance is not, it's not, right? There's no even comparison, necessarily, because of what I experienced. So I'm not saying that my experience was the truth of who that person is, because that person is, I'm sure, different with his current relationship.
Yeah, different
And
people bring different things out
right,
in us.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I acknowledge my participation in that and vice versa. But that is a good point because it has bothered me that it keeps happening. And now and that's a good point to make about the qualities that maybe my current partner doesn't have that I might miss or that I liked or that were appropriate or that are kind of missing.
Yeah.
And not that it's missing, but that was heightened in there.
Yeah, well, there's something very exciting about a dramatic, rocky relationship. If you fight a lot, there's a lot of intense emotion, even if it's negative sometimes. The passion of the makeup sex is equal to the passion of the fight that preceded it. That kind of a thing, and it's like that can be hard to give up. Some people never give it up. Some people live their entire lives craving that drama and not realizing it's holding them back from a lot of other things that might be more important to them if they could let it go. So it could be that's a funny thing too. It's just one of those things where it's like, I know this is better for me, but that was more fun in a way that's not healthy. It's almost like giving up an addiction. And I think I've spoken to some folks who would have dreams about, they were decades sober and they had a dream that they got drunk, and it's like, well, let's talk about that. What's going on in your life that made it either you're, I think one person we were trying to tell the difference between, are you missing the excitement because you feel like your life currently is boring and that was a lot more fun, or are you actually experiencing some trauma that's making you want to crawl back into the bottle? And those are the two main things that popped into my head. And he's like, yeah, well, it's definitely one of those. I'm kind of bored and I'm stressed out, and yeah, that's why that dream would come to me. So that's some folks are like, what dreams? What do you do? What do you talk about? Well, no, it's you. It's your life. It's what you're experiencing, and then these crystallized forms come together and try and. I think it's weird to say that dreams have intent, like they bring a message. I use that language anyway, but it feels weird because I don't think it's an entity exactly.
I think it's an entity. I think it's a way to work something out. Like I can also remember, and I don't remember the situations, but let's see, when's the last time it happened? I will work something out emotionally in my mind in a dream, and I will be crying in the dream so hard that I'm crying in my bed. And I don't know it until I wake up and my eyes are, because I'm crying so hard in my dream. And that I think one time my partner rolled over and he was like, are you okay? Are you okay? Because I was actually crying, but I was dreaming.
Yeah.
But it was happening in my life at the same time it was happening in my dream. I don't remember what it was about, but I was obviously working through something. And so I think it's our dreams are a space to process stuff that our intuition and our consciousness, our subconscious doesn't, your subconscious, it's like why people have anxiety. Who can't stay asleep. They get to bed, but they can't stay asleep. It's because people with anxiety who repress their emotions all day might be able to get to sleep fine because their body is physically tired. But the minute that their body is relaxed and now they can hear all of their internal thoughts that are in their head all day long, and they wake up worried and nervous, is because they've been repressing that all day. And now they can only hear it because they're not numbing themselves through watching too much television or constantly having noise on. Like all of you who have the television on all the time, even if you're not watching it, or the radio. I had a client once, she would sleep with NPR on. I was like, oh my God, stop it. This is why you're so nervous. It is programming. It is hypnotizing you to all of the fear in the world. And then you wake up and you wonder why you're so fearful about everything that's happening in the world, because you literally you're programming, you're hypnotizing yourself through the media while you're sleeping.
Yeah. I'd say the choice of entertainment is a big deal too. Now, I do pretty frequently, I'll put on podcasts or there's this all comedy radio channel, just stand-up comedy clips. So hopefully what I'm absorbing in interesting things that are, but I get that very busy mind thing too. Like if I have absolute silence, or even if I just have the sound of a fan, or noise machines don't work. It's got to be the human voice. Can't be music either. Music actually keeps me awake. It's got to be people talking about things. And then I turn off my inner focus and I put it on to, let's listen to what they're saying. And that ends up having this kind of hypnotic thing. And then eventually I forget what part of the podcast I passed out during, and I got to go back and what's the last thing I can remember, that kind of thing. That's part of my sleep hygiene type of thing, is helping get to sleep. And different people need different things. But yeah, if you're listening to like, I don't recommend, say, true crime podcasts while you're falling asleep. That'll probably be too
Or the news.
exciting.
Don't
Or
listen to the
Don't listen to the
news.
news. Yeah.
Again,
There's
let's talk
gotta
about
be a time when you
frequency.
turn it off. Yeah, when you focus on something else.
Right. Well, it's all, again, that's my realm of clearing someone's head, but also looking at, the brain waves, and you're in theta when you're in going to sleep, and theta is a hypnosis state. So what do you want to program your subconscious to believe? Well, whatever you're feeding it is exactly what's going to etch its way into your subconscious and your body, which you don't want worry and fear. So,
No,
I mean, you really don't.
Things.
No.
Yep. That's great. You brought up hypnosis. We were talking about just the general category of altered states of consciousness, and going through all these books, for coming out of the late medieval period where dreams were mostly in these spiritual, supernatural message from God or the devil type of. I have a book about that. It's ABC Book 2, The Mystery of Dreams. Then we get into kind of the rational enlightenment side of things, where they're trying to explain it. So all couple 300 years period, or the last 200 or 300 years, they were trying to tease out, what is the difference between someone who is hypnotized and someone who is sleepwalking. I mean, because we get these similar type of experiences, I think we still don't have a really good handle on the differences in a lot of these things. They did some fascinating. I love reading these books. I never heard these stories before. They did a surgery on a gal who was hypnotized, and she was conscious and talking through the whole thing. And they asked her, "Are you feeling any pain?" She said, "No, I'm fine." But then woke up from it and had no memory of the experience at all. Like, so she was somewhere else at the same time she was responsive. Bizarre. So bizarre. But that's like people who are sleepwalking. They will have full on conversations with you, laugh and cry in their sleep. So actually any kind of outward expression of behavior other than snoring or rolling over or things like that is a form of somnambulism, and that stuff technically should not leak through. There should be, you shouldn't be. My wife, sometimes she would giggle in her sleep. I don't know what she's doing. She's, and she has no memory of what she's doing. Like, if I woke her up at that moment, she'd be just like, "Why'd you wake me up?" Like, "What are you doing?" "I don't know." But she was laughing at something.
Well, the sleepwalking thing, actually, you just jogged a memory of when I was growing up. My mom would put my dad put a piece of wood underneath the handle to the door that went down the stairs. And we kept it there for a very long time. And I remember when I first said, like, "Why is this here?" And she said, "Because you sleptwalked and almost fell down the stairs."
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, "I did." So, like, when I was little.
And that's not something that has recurred, the walking, the actual.
I don't think so. I don't think it's ever happened again. I mean, I don't know how often it happened. I'll ask my mother. I don't know how often it happened when I was younger, but it happened. I mean, once was enough for them to freak out, to, like, I'm sure, put the block of wood under the doorknob so that I couldn't open the door easily, and it would give them, because my dad's not a very fast mover. So, but I'm sure he moved very fast then. So he probably wanted to have something that would wake them if I was to get it open, so they would have time to come and grab me before I fell down the stairs.
Right. For sure. No. And a lot of people do have done dangerous things to others. There was one story in the books where, a rather well-known sleepwalker left his house, and he was armed with a pistol way back then, like a breech load, not breech load, a musket style pistol way back in 200 years ago. And he actually shot a police officer, and he was brought to trial, and he was acquitted, for, not guilty by reason of insanity. That's the way we would phrase it today, but acquitted because he was able to produce a bunch of witnesses that says that this guy walks around in his sleep all the time and does all kinds of crazy shit. And he did not murder this guy on purpose. This is not a crime the way you think it is. And I think the police officer lived, and it wasn't actually a murder, but like, of course you can't just go around shooting cops. But other people have done amazing things that they would never have they've never trained for. They would never have the confidence to do it in life. People doing cartwheels on the peak of a roof of a house, 2 stories way off the ground. And like, that's where they get into the recommendation that, if a sleepwalker is doing something dangerous, unless you have to physically intervene, it's probably better not to wake them up in some ways. Like, if they're sleepwalking, they're loading a gun, maybe take it away from them. But if they're in the middle of, say, doing cartwheels on the peak of a roof, don't shout at them, hey, stop. If you wake them up in the middle of a cartwheel, they're probably going to fall, whereas otherwise they would be okay. I'm not a lawyer or a doctor. This is not legal advice or medical advice, but these are the stories that, that they've woken people up in the middle of dangerous sleepwalking things, and it's a shock, and they're like, what am I doing up here? And they're down, down to the ground. So anyway, I'm getting all into theory and history and
but I think,
stories.
I think you jog that memory, and I'm like, oh my God, I did sleepwalk. I don't think I've ever done it again. I mean, definitely not as an adult, and not since I can remember. No one has ever told me that.
Baby.
Oh, there's many babies. I had 5. I now have 4. But
I'm surprised any of my other ones haven't crawled up here on the desk. They're usually all up in my shit while I'm trying to record.
Well, Domino always has to be involved.
I call it value-added content.
Yes, although she's sitting on my lap now. She's like, whatever, I'm just going to be here. And I didn't kick anybody out, because ever since that incident on Monday, I have kept them all inside. Normally, they would be allowed outside right now, unsupervised. Well, not anymore for right now. We are too gun shy.
I went to some pretty extreme lengths to keep cats in our backyard. I got metal pipes, and I bent them over, and I used green garden netting that would keep rabbits out of your carrot patch, and I made little zoo enclosure overhangs in my back. It was all, oh God, that was so much work, and it kept most of them in. But
it's not about them leaving. Well, the other one, she decided to leave, but everybody else would stay in. It's really keeping the coyotes out. And not that there have been a ton of them in the yard, but there has been one a couple of years ago at 9:00 in the morning. And then I think maybe one other time that same year, but there hasn't been, we have not seen any in our yard, but they're on that, like Bella lost her life in the front yard because she was out on the street and they were coming down the street, and we have an alley right next to us. So, yeah, like this one on my lap, she has no need to leave. She has no interest in leaving. She is a human in a cat body. She just wants to be with people.
I think I'm a cat in a human body.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I always think that.
I might have been a bird too, and I really want to fly. God, I want to fly so bad. It was Superman style. No, I've had the same experience with coyotes here in Portland. They've been on my street, and they got one of the neighbor's cats, and a couple of times I've gone out there with a big stick and chased them off, but still, they live just a couple miles away up on this mountaintop nearby, and you hear them howling and yapping in the middle of the night. Like, God damn.
I'll come home from dancing, and I actually bought a gun, but it's a BB gun, although it looks like a real gun. So never come to my house, because I will pull the BB gun on you, and it's a Glock, so it looks like a real thing.
Right?
But
you put your eye out, kid.
But I learned to shoot it, and I'm like, and there was one night I came home from dancing, and I heard the coyotes it sounded like they were kind of close in the neighborhood, and I took the gun and I went driving around to find them, because I was going to try to to deter them. And this was before she was outside. This is just because there were other cats in this neighborhood that seemed to live outside just fine. I don't understand how she couldn't survive. These other boys have been doing it for years. And I mean, I'm glad every time I see them, like, I'm glad you're alive. Welcome in, have some food. But they're uncontainable. Like, they're these boys that they'll come inside for a couple of hours in the nighttime, but you cannot contain them. And I was worried, but what can you do? So I just am surprised that she didn't make it when, again, these other cats seem to survive. The same thing. So yeah, I mean, if you want to go down that, I mean, I don't know what other, I'm okay. I don't know what you would, I would be okay if you want to talk about that dream, if you feel like it's necessary. Otherwise, I mean, I think, and I don't know, I know that your format is to kind of analyze dreams, and that's the thing, that's the gig, right? But I also think there's value in just talking about it from sort of the 20-foot viewpoint of, and I'm sure you have, of like why and the different kinds of dreams, and like this idea.
Yeah, we did analyze a couple just a little bit. I mean, in broad strokes, we showed the audience that here's kind of how it works. I mean, you start looking at this stuff and you relate it to your life, you relate it to your personality and your perspective, and you get answers. So one thing, I don't think I want to do the cat dream. I don't think it's good for you, even if it would be good content. I think it's not time, maybe. It's too much of a fresh wound, and that's the other thing I have to be very careful with here too. This is people trusting me to be delicate with their soul, in a way, to not exploit them, and for me to have you on the spot and put pressure on you to, let's do the dream, tell me. And then you break down in tears. And then what? After we're done talking, it was a horrible experience and you're not better off.
Okay,
I don't want that,
and I'm not leaning into it. I kind of agree. I just sort of offered it up as because it's the freshest with a little bit more detail. But
sure,
here's what I'll say
I'm
about
refusing. So there you go.
Yeah, okay, no worries.
You're off the hook.
But here's what I'll say though about that in general.
Yeah.
And this is more of my wheelhouse for people. So when it happened, and I'm just going to talk about the incident for a second. So when it happened, I'm fortunate enough that I work for myself, so I could manage my own schedule. We didn't really have anything on Monday. We had acupuncture, but I canceled it. And my partner and I just grieved all day. And that's all we did. There was no television. There was nothing. A little bit email here or there, just checking sort of normal things, but generally just crying the entire day. And then he said, it is not a good time to leave, because he had a trip planned to go back to see his mom on the East Coast, and he left on Tuesday. And I said, you know what? It's fine. I'm glad we had today together. It would have been worse had you not been here, or had I been booked to go with you. I need a little bit more time. And so Tuesday I canceled everything. Wednesday I pretty much canceled everything. And I've just sort of leaned in. And sometimes I think that the dreams are there to help us process our emotions when we're unwilling to do that. And not that dream needed to come help me process anything, because trust me, I am processing. And I have not, well, it's not about too much. It's like emotions need space. Sure. You can't process how you feel without the space to figure it out and allow it. Allow it. So be angry, cry, scream. I mean, I've wailed. I can cry. I did a very good job crying ugly cries out loud, no holds bar when he was here. But I noticed when he left, I cried a lot harder, a lot more often, and a lot louder. And I gave myself permission just to go with that. Right. Yeah, and I leaned in, and all my belief systems, training, spiritual perspective, whatever, and I got my downloads and I got my hits, and I even have her, I think of her and she pops into my head and she's just smiling at me. She was a devil cat in ways. She was not easy she was a lot to manage with all of the other things, all the other cats, but I tried, and I of course did not want her to die, but and I hope that in time she would soften, she would ease up, she would she'd want to come back in more permanently. We could lose this whole separation thing, but nonetheless, what came to me so I think that dreams give us downloads sometimes, not all the time, but I think dreams are opportunities for spiritual downloads from our subconscious or our higher being, or from source, God, universe, whatever. Okay, not as a message, but as an idea, something that will help you process something. But I also think we can get into that state, like you were saying, you have to listen to words in order for your brain to stop spinning, because you're focused in on the words.
My own words. Yeah.
Right. Well, when I exercise, when I walk, when I hike, when I'm outdoors, and definitely if I'm by myself and I have music in, that's the best time. Because if I have music in my ears, although I didn't have it on yesterday when I took my walk, but I took a walk yesterday. And I didn't want music in, because I knew the music would wreck me. I was if I hear a sad song, it will wreck me. But I started walking up the hill, and the thought came to me, she has her own inner being. She has her own inner guidance. We all have our own inner guidance. And we have this illusion that we can control everybody else's inner guidance when it pleases us, because it threatens our fears and safety and whatnot. And I just had to be reminded of that in a very simplistic form. Yes, I know that we did so many things, exhausted, trying to keep her in safe and with everybody and everybody happy. Wasn't happening. And this was a last ditch effort after over a year and a half. And so we did it, and it didn't really work out the way I would have liked it to work out. Yeah. But that doesn't mean her soul's journey wasn't exactly what she needed to do. So who am I to interpret for her what was best for her, or if this was right or wrong? It just is what it is. And if we can, and I think that we can use our dreams along with our waking state intuition and downloads and hits and thoughts and impulses that happen as ways to process. I mean, that's why I think dreams are so important, if in the work that you're doing and in enlightening people and educating people to pay attention to their dreams, because there's whether there be healing and messages or ideas, ways to process, ways to unburden emotions that you might not want to deal with, that your dreams will allow you to do. I think they're the connection to our heart. Mm-hmm. I do work with plant medicine, and I had one of my clients who's been with me for a while, but she did a journey with me a couple months ago. and she's a Gemini, and she's really good at meditation because all air signs are really good at disconnecting. Meditation isn't always the best idea for people because people can repress big time in meditation because they can disconnect from the body. But she said, I want to feel more. And so she did this journey. And then all of a sudden she's like, everyone that's been doing the plant medicine that I've helped, whether it's been microdosing or a journey, has like elevated their dreams. Like I am dreaming so much now because it's opened parts of their brain that they weren't paying attention to. So I think that by acknowledging it and like what the work you're doing in the world and bring it to people, even if you don't forget the plant medicine, I mean, that's helpful. But if you don't want to do any of that, just the idea of paying attention to it will help it come more online and then more accessible to you if you just start to try to remember, try to write down, pay attention, talk about it, and then you'll like create those neural pathways to continue to expand that ability.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I think that might be a good final word on the subject. I mean, we had a great conversation and we did a little bit of dream analysis along the way. And sometimes, folks come to me and they have nothing. They thought I meant hopes and aspirations types of dreams. Tell me about your vision for the future. I'm like, no, we're talking actual, nocturnal visions. And they're like, I don't have nocturnal emissions. I don't know what you said. No, visions. let's get our nomenclature straightened out. But yeah, I think, there's no need to drag it out if we had a good conversation. And I think he probably wants to go outside. So, if you feel like we had a good talk and you're happy with it, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun for me. So hopefully there was some value in it for other people.
Absolutely. I think there was. Yeah. Like I've said, I don't think we need to drag it. We could probably keep talking for a long time, but I think we did the thing, made a good episode out of it. I'm satisfied. So, and no worries about that. I think this is a good lesson too. It's like, okay, I will say just a couple final things. This is a good example of what you were talking about. Reminded me of the idea of a lot of times we want to control others for our own sake, and it's not malicious. Now there's plenty of malicious people, but the idea of if I just say the right magic words, I can make someone do what I want them to do, or have a situation turn out the way I would prefer. And there's a great value in letting go of that kind of thing of like, I'm just going to do what I do. And some people are going to like it. Some people are not. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not being careless, but I'm also disconnected from the outcome in terms of like, now the decision is yours. You do what you want with that information. And also the idea of me coming into this thing, okay, I want to make a show. We did the show. This is the thing. We had a conversation. And we talked about dreams and we did a little bit of analysis. And so what, it's not exactly the same as every other show. Maybe this one needed to be different. Maybe there was something else of value to be found in here. So I even let go of control of the conversations as much as I possibly can. I'm always racking my brain to have something to say, so I'm not like dead air or putting it all on the guest. But in a lot of ways, and that's how I approach the dream interpretation things. I don't have a goal. I don't have a destination. I don't have an explanation. I don't have anywhere I'm trying to go. We're just looking at it for what it is. And you get out of it what you get out of it, and I give you as much as I can. And I think every single interpretation I've ever done, I failed. I forgot. I didn't think of something I should have, could, or that might have been useful. I didn't look at something from the right angle. I couldn't quite put together a narrative. But it came out okay. It's like not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. Did some good there. It's never going to be perfect. I'm always going to forget something. I'm always going to miss something. But I think it's still worthwhile, as you were saying,
Well, the only way you're going to know is, I look at it as a podcaster. If I'm having a good conversation, people will be interested because I'm interested, because it's that frequency of, because if they're not watching this on video and they're just listening, the frequency of the connection, the frequency of the excitement, the interest, the attention to it, or whatever we're talking about, because there are plenty of people that they check their boxes with their podcast and they ask the same question over and over again, but they're not connected. They don't care. And they don't like follow up with any other questions. It doesn't get any deeper. And that's boring for people. I hate that kind of structure where someone's just asking questions that they ask everybody else. That's happened to me. Like people will ask me a question and then I'll answer it and then they'll move on to the next question. I'm like, we're not going to talk about that. And I don't want to listen to that kind of stuff. I want to listen to something that you're interested, that I'm interested, that there's a little passion behind, there's a little, that we're curious, there's energy there. And so, the only way to really know, like I tell podcasters, like do the show you want to do. And, and then if the right people will listen to it. But since you have an audience, you can just ask them, did you find value in this episode? It was different than my other episodes. I'd love to know that, because it helps to know that they're like, well, not really, because we really love your analysis. And then you'll know that. And they'd be like, yeah, it was kind of different and new and exciting, and because it wasn't the same, whatever. But, I think you just ask. So if anybody's listening to this and you have an opinion and you're a fan, so why don't you reach out and
say something. Yeah, for sure. No, I'm very, very, I love just kind of letting things be what they are. I give it my best. And okay, that happened. And we'll do another one. We'll just keep going. Anyway, I don't consider this failure. I don't think we did anything wrong. I'm just saying different is not bad. It's an interesting approach to things. To just let it be what it is and see what happens. I can't imagine having a conversation. Well, it's not. I had one guest once. No, not naming any names in the episode. Never aired because there were technical difficulties and this person was a little impatient. But it felt like talking to bullet points, like I wasn't having a conversation with a person, and it was probably for the best that the technical difficulties shut it down. Strange synchronicities like that happened to me too. Like, this wasn't a good person to talk to anyway. Stop wasting your time. In fact, we're going to pull the ripcord. Technical difficulties. Get out of here. That worked. That's fine. So yeah, it's a reversal of fortune thing where you never really know if something was for the best until you just see what happens.
I've interviewed two very famous podcasters, and I didn't air either one of them. One guy, it was my ego that wanted the episode, because I had this thought that if I interviewed him, we'd build a relationship, and then he'd like me, and then he'd want to have me on his show. And that was not the case. We couldn't be more opposite. And again, intuition, I would listen to a show and cringe. And I thought to myself, why did I bring on this guy when I literally can't even listen to his episode because I disagree with everything that comes out of his mouth? But my ego said, oh, but this would be good marketing. This would be good if you get him on your show. Yep. And then, but then I'm like, I can't do it. My integrity was like, you are not airing the show. And then another guy who I would have aired it, but anyway, I just didn't. And I didn't because it didn't feel fair to me. It didn't feel right to me. The conversation was fine, but it was all kind of one-sided. It wasn't like we weren't really. I was a minion, and I'm sorry, you're coming on my show. You don't get that. So I'm a podcaster as of this coming Saturday, 10 years. You're not going to come on and treat me like I'm a fly and you're the king. Sorry, because this is my audience and they're here for me. And I get to decide whether I publish your show or not. So, but he was fine, but I wasn't interested in not having a collaboration of sorts, if you will. So yeah, you're the ultimate, and you listen to your intuition and you do the thing. But if anyone, enjoyed this different format, I would love for you to tell Benjamin that. And if you didn't love it, I'd love to know that too.
Well, and honestly, I'd be happy to have you back if, a dream comes to you and like, hey, Dad, we'll do the thing. And next time.
Yeah, I'll write them down. What happens is I have this dream and then I go process it like that day.
Right.
So
if
it's almost like
already figured it out. It's like, I'm kind of superfluous. That's fantastic. I would want to, there was a, excuse me, got excited and swallowed my own spit. There's a movie. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I don't know if you're a fan of Kung Fu films, called Shaolin Soccer. Nope. Okay. No worries. It's a movie about soccer and martial arts, and incorporating kind of this parody fusion of, well, what if people were highly skilled martial artists playing soccer and bringing their skills and doing, like there's a trope in films of like, I will now show you my 5-finger death punch, all going all the way back to the 70s. Well, they bust out special moves on the soccer field, and it's martial arts and tricks with the ball and making it curve and doing backflips and all kind. Long story short on that one, it's a fun film, but at the very end, they show the results of this team coming together and challenging and rising to the top and becoming an inspiration. Well, what happened was they inspired everyone in the world to take up martial arts. They're like, wow, I want to be like those guys. And at the very end of the movie, you see a woman get out of a car, and instead of parallel parking, she just boom, knocks it into the parking spot. You see people running to catch a double-decker bus, and they're leaping and climbing up to jump into, the entire world has lifted itself up to this higher level of ability because of this inspiration. I had a point to all of that, but I guess I hope what I'm doing. Like, I see that's self-aggrandizing. That's
well,
like
no. I think the last thing I said was that. The last thing I said that made you think of that was that
you analyze your own dreams.
Right. And then usually, like, I process them right away. I talk about them. I share them to process them. And so, but what will be fun is if I have one that I process and I can't figure out, and then I'll write it down.
That's where someone like me comes in handy. But I guess the overall point of that was what I would want to do through my work is to have people inspired to raise their own ability to do this for themselves. Like, I can't talk to everybody, assuming everybody wanted to talk to me. It wouldn't be possible, but I can show you how to do it, and you can take what you learn and apply it to yourself. And given, I've always had a little bit, this goes back to what I tried to wrap it up like 20 minutes ago. Both of us have so many things to say. That's fine. I'm not complaining. Something that I was going to say way back into the very beginning is like you were saying, you can develop intuition. Like, we're all born with it, and some of us are born with more of an access to it naturally. We intuitively use our intuition in ways we don't understand. But it can also be trained. I mean, the more focus in it. So I think I've always had a bit of a talent for the dream thing, but if I didn't do this, what I'm doing, I wouldn't have developed it to where, and I'm definitely better now than I was 5 years ago. I think everybody can do that. That's, long story short, that's my, and then I found $10.
Well, I will let you close the show and I will shut up.
No, that's fine. And then we'll hang out 2 seconds afterward and just decompress. I always do that with folks too. So it's a whole process to this. And I invite you to join because I'd love to talk to you. You don't have to be anybody special. Well, you're all special to me. You can just be a regular person who does not have a podcast, is not an author. We never talked about any of your books or your podcasts. We'll have you back. We'll do that next time. We'll get a little more specific into that stuff. But,
if anyone's interested, I have a podcast. So if you listen to podcasts and you're looking for other podcasts, I guess my flagship show, I have a network.
What's the name of it?
Spirit, Purpose, and Energy.
Okay. Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. Well, that is the podcast of JJ Flizanes. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Oh my God. I can't. My confidence is shot with that. It's such a unique last name. She's an author and podcaster who works with conscious, spiritual truth seekers who want to remove emotional blocks to success in health, business, and life by helping to identify patterns of self-sabotage and to transmute struggle into joy. And I think this conversation has been a demonstration of why she's good at what she does. Strong recommend. You can find her at jjflizanes.com. That will be in the link in the description below, of course. For my part, would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends? Always need more volunteer dreamers, viewers for the video game streams, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific. This episode brought to you in part by ABC Book 6, Studies in Dreams, which I think relates very much to this episode. This woman, Mrs. Mary Arnold Forster, did dream programming. She would program her dreams and then have dreams about what she was talking about. So fascinating self-study in dreams, and then one of the first that I'm aware of documentations of what it was like to have lucid dreams and how she interacted with those experiences. Long story short, all this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, including downloadable MP3 versions of this very podcast. And if you'd head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, attached to my Rumble account, building a community there. That is enough out of me. And JJ, thank you for being here. It has been a fun and fascinating conversation.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. I appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation with you.
Absolutely. And everybody out there, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.